Hello and welcome to Start Select, the video game show from GameSpot UK. This may be our last show of the year, but we're looking forward to an epic 2010 with a selection of cracking interviews. First up, I'll be meeting the team behind Mass Effect 2 and finding out what to expect from the beginning of the game. I'll then be travelling to Brighton to go and see BlackRock Studios and its new racing game, Split Second. Finally, we catch up with the team behind Splinter Cell Conviction to find out about the game's brand new co-op mode. We'll also be giving away 5 download codes for Blue Toad Murder Files on the PlayStation 3, as well as announcing the winners of last week's Assassin's Creed 2 competition. But with all that out of the way, let's get on with the show. Alright guys, we're down at the EA Christmas Showcase now, and I'm lucky enough to be joined by Adrian Cho, who is the producer on Mass Effect 2. Thanks for joining us, Adrian.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So Adrian's going to tell us a little bit about Mass Effect 2. I've just played the opening first 10 minutes. What can people expect when they get into the game?
I think they'll be blown away by the first 10 minutes. The first part of the game really sets the tone. It hits you hard, and it just rolls after that. I think the great thing about making a sequel is that you've already established the characters in the first part, and so you know who Commander Shepard is. He's a Spectre. He's out to stop all kinds of nefarious things throughout the galaxy, and this game just starts off with a wallop. I like to think of it, Mass Effect 2, as kind of like the deeper, darker chapter of the Mass Effect trilogy, and you can kind of look at some of the great science fiction films that inspired us. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Empire Strikes Back. It just starts off really fast and hard. It just doesn't really let go, and then at the end of it, you're just like left kind of breathless.
So this is your Empire Strikes Back then? This is your dark chapter?
That is right. You might actually find out who Shepard's father is at the end of the game.
Get his hand cut off or something?
Maybe not. It's going to be pretty dramatic, I think. And of course, the beginning starts off fantastic and absolutely moving. And I actually think the beginning is actually a lot closer to what you see in Star Trek II. But all I can say is that by the end of the Mass Effect 2, it's completely amazing, and it'll be just as powerful and moving as The Empire Strikes Back.
So I know you don't want to give away too many spoilers with such a story-driven game, but can we expect the universe to be changed fundamentally again throughout the course of Mass Effect 2?
Yes. I mean, the great thing about Mass Effect 2 is it continues on with the established worlds that we've had in the first one and the storyline. And of course you can import your character from the first one, which is great. So if you let certain people die, save certain people, if you save this council, all those choices will make a very unique playing experience in the sequel, which means that you and I will have very different games, and which is great because Mass Effect is tailored to your own individual experience. In 2, you actually explore some of the worlds that we only alluded to in the first one. So, for example, you'll see the Asari homeworld. You'll see a few other planets that I don't want to spoil, but it'll give you a lot of insight into some of the characters that you met in the first one, and obviously some of the new characters you meet in the second one as well.
Sure. And so can we talk about specifics at the beginning of the game? Do you want to keep it spoiler-free at this stage?
Well, something really bad happens to Shepard, I think, right off the beginning. And there's a new threat in the galaxy called the Collectors. And what happens is that they ambush Shepard and they destroy the Normandy. And Shepard, in the process of saving his crew, gets blasted out in space and he dies. And it's quite it's an amazing moment in the game. I think for people who've played through the game and gone through all that they have in the first game, to see your character die. What happens is we introduce Cerberus and the Elusive Man. And Cerberus is a pro-human organization, and they were actually always in the background in Mass Effect 1, so we always had plans for them. And in the sequel, they actually play a much larger role. And what happens is they rebuild Shepard, and there's a rebirth sequence, and Shepard comes back alive, but now he works for this group. And they've tasked him with finding out who these collectors are and why they've been abducting human beings from throughout the galaxy and taking them. And Shepard must go deep into the enemy territory to stop these collectors.
And can we talk, just going back to the character creation bit there, it seems even more powerful than it was before. You can type in codes and kind of just create people at random. It's really powerful.
Yeah, you notice that. So Mass Effect 2 does 2 different things. We're actually anticipating opening up the audience to a wider range of gamers who might not have actually tried role-playing games or even played Mass Effect 1. So we've actually improved the combat a lot. So we're going to bring in a lot of shooter fans. At the same time, we're going to have a lot of fans of the first one. So the really neat thing is during the character creation process is you can import your character. They'll look exactly the way you did as you left them in the first game. But the game also offers you the opportunity to kind of tweak your look. So if you decide, you know what, I'm tired of looking at the blonde hair, I want to be a brunette, or I want to add in some really cool scars, or you know what, I want to change my look completely for the character, you can. Because during that process, Cerberus is rebuilding your face.
It's Project Lazarus, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's a really incredible sequence, really moving as well. The neat thing is, though, you can also change classes. So if you always wanted to try being an adept, and you played through the first game as a soldier, the game at that point actually allows you to switch choices. So it's really great. Because after you put 60 hours into it, sometimes you're like, oh, I wish I actually played it, chosen differently. And so at the beginning of Mass Effect 2, it actually allows you those choices.
And so you'll kind of just tell us a little bit about your feelings as well. Obviously, it's a busy Q1 next year. There's seems like hundreds of AAA releases. Does that kind of daunt you a little bit?
No, I think the game is solid. It's going to be word of mouth is going to be great on it. But I think the most important part is when people get to play it for themselves. No matter how much we talk about the improvements in combat and the action and the shooting elements of it, once you get your hands on it and play for yourself, you just feel it's great.
Those are big words, Adrian. I look forward to playing the game and seeing if it lives up to it. I'm sure it will, but thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And people can expect Mass Effect 2 in stores?
Late 2010. Late January 2010.
Thought it'd been pushed back then. Thanks very much, Adrian.
Thank you.
Split Second is the racing game to watch next year, and we managed to get the skinny on it early by visiting the developer over in Brighton. All right, guys, we're joined now by Nick Baines, who's the game director on a game called Split Second. Thanks for joining us, Nick.
Hello, Wes.
Tell us about what you've been showing us today.
Well, today what we've been showing you is the latest and greatest really from the game. I think last time we showed it to you was probably a few months ago, and we showed the airport track, which I think a lot of people had a chance to see on the internet or played at E3 and various other shows. And today we showed you the latest docks track. So one of the other environments in the game assessing the docks, and what was nice there, I think we had some of our really most recent cutting edge like special effects and smoke and particles and that kind of stuff.
So we've seen a couple of environments from the game now, and we've heard a little bit about how it's all being wrapped together in this game show. Tell us a bit about how that works.
Yeah, so the city, the whole game's set in and around this one big city, and the city itself is a giant film set that's been made for the TV show. So the idea being that it explains why in various street corners and areas there's remotely detonated, explosives that have been placed to remotely detonate and various set pieces. And as you drive around, you can trigger them remotely. So as you're racing against other people. So as you go through the TV show season, you'll be encountering different locations in the city, seeing them rebuilt with new power plays, the big explosive moments being installed as you go through the game. And yeah, I mean, really that's it. It's all just like one massive crazy race to this enormous TV set.
And so each episode, the idea is the next episode will be you'll get to play with even bigger explosives, and maybe something that you saw before you'll actually be able to collapse.
That's right. So when you go through, sometimes it'll be brand new locations, other times it'll be other locations maybe you've visited before, but this time, like I say, they've installed a new power play. So there's maybe a landmark you've driven past over the last 2 or 3 races that suddenly we unveil, you can now blow it up or bring it down or whatever it is. So it does mean that as you go back to the tracks over the game, there's more and more given to you. But also the other thing as well is that some of these power plays open whole new routes. So it's not just getting something at one new set piece, it's actually giving you a whole new route to race around the track as well.
One of the things that I liked about just playing it briefly was the ability to kind of blow stuff up and hinder your opponents, but also you can use it to open up shortcuts and beat them as well.
Yeah, so really there's an element of strategy to it, because there's the 2 different levels of power play for a start. So you've got the level 1s, which are much smaller, and the level 2s, which are bigger but take 3 times as much of the power that you've earned. So we've noticed definitely some players use lots of the small ones to try and take out people all the time. Other people, I know it's you doing it, storing it up to the big ones. And some people just decide to try and use it to their advantage by opening new routes or opening a shortcut and just cutting a corner off. So we do find that everyone's got a different way of playing the game.
Okay, so tell us about it. It's kind kind of this one that we saw today, which is currently called Nemesis, but might change.
Yeah,
you're racing against trucks in a kind of Terminator 2-esque.
That sort of thing, yeah. So, I mean, a lot of the rest of the game and everything we've shown so far, I think you can definitely see the inspiration from various movies and that kind of stuff. But we've always had it's about the environment and using the environment on your opponents. Whereas we thought the other big iconic action sequence in the movies is, that it comes up time and again for some reason, the big trucks, against the small cars. So in the mode we show you today, the main goal is to pass as many of these trucks as you can within a time limit, with your time being extended when you pass one. And obviously it's not just that simple, because they're trying to block you, they're dropping explosives out the back, there's other cars and trucks trying to ram you off. So yeah, it really has that kind of you against the truck feel to it. And I think it does give a very unique experience compared to the rest of the races in the game.
The emphasis definitely seems to be on the power plays. Is there any kind of, do you fetishize the vehicles at all? Can you get new cars? Can you do decals on them?
Yeah, so the cars, as you go through, you do unlock new cars, things like you'll see decals on the cars, and they've all got different handling types. I mean, you've placed, I think you're playing the muscle car, but there's definitely sleeker, faster cars, and there's bigger, heavy ones, and they've all got their own attributes to go through the game. I
know you haven't talked specifically about multiplayer yet, but can we expect something along the lines of the single player experience in a multiplayer game? You try to do something different there?
Yeah, so the game modes that just work online, then you'll get them, but we're also tweaking and tailoring some for a better online experience. They're 8-player online races, but also we've got 2-player split screen as well. So and again, there's many of the game modes that work in single player on split screen and online are there for you to play as well. So and a few, like I say, unique twists for that as well. So I think both online and offline is definitely well catered for.
And so where are we at now? The game is looking quite polished, but you're gearing up to release sometime next year. What stage are you at?
Yeah, we're kind of at the point now where, a lot of the major components there, we're, like I say, refining the special effects, tweaking the lighting. I think we're kind of entering that kind of post-production phase right now, but with the exciting time when it all comes together and turns into a final polished product. So exciting times.
Okay, well thanks very much, Nick. Tell us when we can expect to see Split Second on what formats.
Okay, well it's out on PS3, 360 and PC, and that's out early next year.
Great stuff. Thanks for your time, Nick.
Great, thank you.
Time to give away some competition prizes now. On the last show, we had 5 copies of the fantastic Assassin's Creed 2 to give away on the platform of your choice. All you had to do was tell us the actor that plays the role of Desmond in the game. The answer is, of course, Nolan North, and our winners are Bernard Tanguy, Adam Dimitru, and Nolan Ramsey, who all wanted it on the PlayStation 3, and Ben Campbell and Alistair Fillingham, who wanted it on the 360. Congrats, guys. You'll all be parkouring it up in Renaissance, Italy very soon. This week we have another great competition prize courtesy of Relentless Software, whose new game Blue Toad Murder Files launches on the PlayStation 3 this week. To celebrate, they've given us 5 download codes to get it from the PlayStation Network. To be in with a chance of nabbing a code, just answer this question. Relentless is based in the same town as another one of the developers we visited on this show, but where is it? If you think you know the answer, email it to competitions@gamespot.co.uk and we'll draw the winners on the next edition of Start Select. Splinter Cell Conviction takes the series in an interesting new direction, and as a part of that, there'll be a brand new co-op mode in the game when it launches next year. We found out more with the producer.
I'm Patrick Redding. I'm the game director for Splinter Cell Conviction multiplayer out of Ubisoft Montreal, and we're going to be able to talk a little bit here in London about Splinter Cell Conviction multiplayer, about our co-op game.
Charge. Ready. Stand clear.
We're very excited because we've been working on this for a while to kind of all at once sort of unleash the information about co-op for Splinter Cell Conviction, and also allow a few of the journalists to go hands-on with both our story mode and also our deniable ops missions. In our story mode, co-op is developed for 2 players. It's 2-player co-op. One player is playing Archer, who's an American agent for Third Echelon, the same organization that used to employ Sam Fisher, and Kestrel, who's the Russian agent that's working for Voron, which is basically the Russian counterpart. And so over the course of 4 major missions, 4 different maps, completely separate and unique to co-op. This isn't sort of another walkthrough of the same maps that we see in single player. The players are going to be on a mission to track down and intercept 4 weapons of mass destruction from the old Soviet arsenal that are being sold on the black market. It was really important for us to not have kind of like a separate isolated narrative for co-op. We wanted to have a story for multiplayer, but we also wanted to make sure that we were extending the universe that's been set up in Splinter Cell Conviction. So this is actually kind of a prequel to the events that are happening to Sam and his story. One thing that was important is that, you know, Conviction, it was really given a mandate to try to reinvent and revitalize gameplay for Splinter Cell. And so across the board, from single player to multiplayer, we're introducing a lot of elements that allow players to move freely between stealth and action and then back into stealth. So for example, mechanics like the mark and execute actually scale really well when you have two players, because it gives two players the ability to kind of track a number of different enemies, kind of share those marks, and if they're being very clever, they're being very stealthy and very tactical, sort of trap the AI enemy in certain situations where they can then eliminate large numbers of them. We like to say that if Sam's feeling like a panther most of the time in single player, our two agents, Archer and Ketchel, they're like these two wolves that are sort of tracking their prey together. The last known position is a really interesting tool, because what we're doing is we're putting a kind of a silhouette in the world that allows the player to visualize where the AI thinks they are. And when we've got two players that are able to do that, they can really leapfrog each other, they can really kind of play cat and mouse and sort of hand off enemies to one another in order to sort of set up traps for them in order to really be the ultra predatory agents in the dark. What we were able to show today are kind of the first 15 minutes, about the first two main zones of the third map of the story, a map we call the Yastreb Complex. And what's happening is the agents are infiltrating this old Cold War era intelligence archive that's underneath Moscow in order to get some information about these warheads. We like it. It's a good mix of kind of stealth and action gameplay, but also it sort of showcases kind of the unique setting that we're giving to players. You're entering into what feels like kind of a living time capsule from the era of Stalin, you know, this kind of old train station that would have been used to evacuate the Politburo in the event of atomic war, and then from there making your way up into this old archive that's being now used by this sort of rogue element within the Russian military. It's safe to say that the four missions that make up the story campaign represent 5 to 6 hours approximately of gameplay, depending on your style of play. I mean, again, because we're trying to extend that notion of stealth action to be, you know, not so much the hardcore hiding up in the shadows for 15 minutes watching a guy patrol, it's possible for players to go through and play it in a more action-oriented way, in which case obviously it's gonna go a bit faster for them, but then they can go back and replay. So in addition to our story campaign, we have what are called our deniable ops missions, and those basically, the deniable ops missions are playable in 6 maps in total, including the 4 story maps. All of the maps take place in Russia. But the idea is that in the 4 modes for deniable ops, you're playing a number of different types of game objectives. So for example, in hunter mode, you're really there to just eliminate enemies using whatever tools you have at your disposal as efficiently as possible. You can do it in a stealthy way, you can do it in an action way. We have modes like infiltration, which is meant to kind of evoke that classic Splinter Cell feeling of you're moving around in the dark and you can't get detected, or it's game over basically. For 3 of the 4 modes, it's possible to play either solo or in co-op. For the 4th mode, which is sort of our adversarial mode, spy versus spy, we call it face-off. Obviously you need 2 players for that, but then we also add some AI into the mix so that there's some extra enemies there for the players to have to deal with as well. Really, as kind of a reward to the players for going deep into the game, we have what's called our persistent elite creation system, and this is a way of earning experience points by completing challenges in any of the game modes, and those points can then be used in our locker rooms or in our weapon stashes in the game world itself to actually upgrade weapons. So for example, a weapon that you already have, you can add a silencer to it, or you can add a special stock to it for accuracy, scope, or upgrading some of the existing gadgets to make the grenades more efficient, for example, and also upgrading the appearance of your avatar, changing kind of the uniform that you're wearing, etc. So this is really a way for players who want to kind of go through and sort of check everything out, complete all those challenges, really complete the content, to go in and have kind of a measure of that. We really focused on co-op as our multiplayer offering, just because of the values of Conviction and the special kind of mechanics that we were bringing to bear with it. Really fit co-op well. Also, it really fit 2-person co-op, just because as soon as you get to sort of 3 or 4 people, suddenly you're a squad, and now we're in Rainbow Six territory. So for us, I think we feel like that the dynamic of 2 players playing together works really, really well. And then even in adversarial, when you have these agents that are, the players have spent a lot of time becoming that that Predator, obviously they want to test it against one another as well. So that becomes the sort of obvious dynamic for us to play with. Right now we are going to be spending the remainder of production really cranking on polishing and getting the game super solid. And we're really happy with it. We're essentially complete in terms of our content and features, and now we're just going in and tuning it and making it great. I'm Patrick Redding, game director for Splinter Cell Conviction multiplayer, and I encourage you all to look out for Splinter Cell Conviction coming in February 2010.
That's all for this episode of Start Select, and indeed Start Select for the entire year, but we'll be back again in January 2010 with more interviews, demos and competitions. In the meantime, if you want to see any game featured on the show, just let us know by emailing startselect@gamespot.co.uk. Have a great Christmas, and we'll see you all again in 2010.